Can you give us some basic 101 about chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just what we would consider to be a much better approach than traditional or conventional medicine because it's about building your health. It's establishing health so you don't get sick in the first place. And if you do get sick or you're in pain, it's a way to reestablish wellness so that not only are you out of pain or the symptoms gone, or maybe even the disease is gone, but you're now actually healthy, not just simply symptom free. So I just really love the approach. My family sort of sat around and waited to see what would happen before doing anything about their health. Unfortunately, for my dad, the first sign that he had a health problem is that he was dead from a heart attack.
Hmm.
So he felt perfectly fine until he died. Yet I know he didn't take care of himself. He wasn't investing in his health leading up to that.
You're listening to the Visibly Fit Podcast. Hey, I'm your host, Wendie Pett, and every week I'll give you holistic, practical solutions for everyday issues related to nutrition, healing, functional fitness, and behavior modifications. As a naturopath, fitness expert, and wellness coach for over 20 years, my goal is to empower you to reach for greater health and to rise up to your next level of living in mind, body, and spirit. You were created with greatness in mind. It's time to own it. Are you with me? Then let's dive in. Hello and welcome to Visibly Fit. I'm your host, Wendie Pett. A life is not important except for the impact it has on others. That is a quote by Jackie Robinson, and this quote is on my guest's website, and I couldn't agree more. And as you will hear of his impact on others from his bio, he does this quote a great justice. I'm going to read his bio, and I know you see him on the screen here if you're watching, but Dr. Ben Lerner is the president and CEO of the Ultimate Influence Group, UIG. UIG owns, manages, and has invested in multiple companies and startups in health, tech, finance, marketing, real estate, manufacturing, consulting, and coaching. He has written 2 New York Times best-selling books, including Body by God, The Owner's Manual for Maximized Living back in the day. It's such a great book. Traveled to 4 Olympics as a U.S. team doctor and is the CFO of 10X Incubator. Dr. Lerner has a bachelor's in nutrition, a master's in IO psychology, is a doctor of chiropractic, and doing doctorate work in business administration. He utilized his healthcare and business training to build a manufacturing and franchising organization with over 100 locations and develop processes for another 500 locations to operate as licensees, which he exited from in 2017. But his current functional wellness program is called, I want to say it's called Vitalleo. Is that correct?
You got it.
Vitalleo Health. And he works with over 400 doctors around the U.S. So, Dr. Ben, thank you so much for being on Visibly Fit with me today.
It's a pleasure and an honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so fun to reconnect. I know we connected years ago, and this is such a time where people are for lack of better words, waking up to their health, right? And waking up to understanding that, wow, okay, I do have more control than I realize. And if I don't take care of my health, then I'm not going to be able to fulfill my calling or to live this life as I desired. And so I want to talk first about chiropractic. I know you cover just so many areas of health and well-being, and you have your hand in so many great things, but I want to talk about chiropractic. I know you have a great love for it and you have helped many through chiropractic, but there's I think maybe a misunderstanding or not even knowing enough about chiropractic practice, which is interesting to me because I have a chiropractor. I love going to the chiropractor, but so many people have a misnomer. They are afraid of the chiropractor. Can you give us some basic 101 about chiropractic?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, it's just what we would consider to be a much better approach than traditional or conventional medicine because it's about building your health. It's establishing health so you don't get sick in the first place. And if you do get sick or you're in pain, it's a way to reestablish wellness so that not only are you out of pain or the symptoms gone, or maybe even the disease is gone, but you're now actually healthy, not just simply symptom free. So I just really love the approach. My family sort of sat around and waited to see what would happen before doing anything about their health. Unfortunately for my dad, the first sign that he had a health problem is that he was dead from a heart attack. So
Mm,
he felt perfectly fine until he died. Yet I know he didn't take care of himself. He
yeah.
wasn't investing in his health leading up to that. And so things ended really early for him. I'm actually several years older than my dad was when he died.
Mm,
Um, and, thankfully for me, my family, my brothers that are younger than me, we all took this other approach to our well being. And so we, get the chance to live our life with certainty and with courage and a faith in the immune system and the body that God gave us, this body by God, so that we are at our peak of health, even, later in life, thanks to this method.
I love that. I love that because I'm all about the mind, body, spirit approach as well. And we are a whole unit. Like we can't really compartmentalize and just take care of one area because then the rest will fall apart. So I love that you are Christ centered. You have a Christ centered approach to your practice, but we are emotional beings, right? And we deal with trauma. We deal with all kinds of things that life throws our way, and our body knows what we think, our body knows what we say, and it responds accordingly. And so I know with chiropractic medicine that it's a way for your body to release those unhealthy toxins as well. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yes. Now, we don't say chiropractic medicine.
Practice. I meant to say practice. Yeah. Hello.
People say it all the time, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
trying to avoid
Totally. I'm with
medicine.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. So the body is, God knew what he was doing. The body was
Yes.
designed to survive in a very toxic world, spiritually toxic, emotionally toxic, as well as physiologically toxic. And so our bodies are designed when it comes to chemicals to absorb them. The liver, your digestive system, colon, everything's designed to kidneys grab these toxins, filter them out, and get them out of the body. So if our bodies are functioning like they're supposed to work, then we can deal with this toxic world. So whether or not it's because we can't deal with the stress any longer mentally, or we can't deal with toxins physically, that lack of ability to adapt to the environment could really have a lot to do with how we're functioning. So chiropractic is all about restoring function, getting you back to 100% of your God-given potential for just how your body works, so it can deal mentally or physically with toxins. For the mind, it can get, the brain can get it under control. For the body, get all these organs working like they're supposed to, and get the toxins out.
Yeah. I think that's great. That's great. And I mentioned the word medicine. I think it's because that's my next question. And I got a little confused there on traditional medicine versus chiropractic. Why do you believe that there has been, I think it's getting better, but a tension with traditional medicine and chiropractic practice? What do you think that is all about?
Yeah, so now it's amazing. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of medical providers that refer to chiropractors.
Hmm.
As you mentioned, I've worked with a number of Olympic teams, a lot of professional sports, and we work side by side with other MDs and orthopedists and PTs and ATCs, all of these people, and everybody's really gained a radical appreciation for chiropractic. Where if you go back 20, 30 years, I think people still think of it that way, where sort of legendarily medicine was opposed to chiropractic or anything like it. That is really not the case today.
Yeah.
We generally work pretty closely, although we certainly have our differences also. I have a very good friend who's an orthopedist, and he doesn't realize that a lot of the problems that he treats with drugs or surgery, we could correct naturally through chiropractic. So, we do sometimes, butt heads, but we have a healthy respect for each other. And he does send me patients now where probably 20 years ago, he never would have sent a chiropractor or a patient.
Right. And it might have been called going to a quack doctor, remember that term, right?
Yeah.
So no, it has come a long way, but there is sometimes that tension but I believe it is coming together full circle and understanding that, wow, God really did make us uh, able to heal in our own capacity without having to reach immediately for medication. We want to do all that we can naturally first. And as a naturopath, I get that 100%. So that's
Yeah. And
fantastic.
that doctor, by the way, I was just mentioning, that friend of mine, he just reached out to me when he couldn't get his blood pressure under control, because he had looked at a medical study that showed that a chiropractic adjustment could bring blood pressure down better than two medications combined. And that was a medical study done at the University of Chicago Medical School, not even done by chiropractors.
Wow, I love that. That is such a testimony, and it's true. It's not like I guess some people think it's a one and done kind of approach. Like, I'll just go to the chiropractor one time and I'm going to be healed. Well, maybe, but what would you say to that person that, first of all, they think they have to go continually for the rest of their life, or that it's the one and done approach? Would you say it's a conquering layer of many things, not just chiropractic, not just nutrition, not just what would you say to that person that may be falling on either side of the scale? It's one and done, or I'm gonna have to go for the rest of my life. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I mean, from a larger perspective, what people have to understand is when it comes to optimizing your health, reaching your God given potential so that you have all the energy and time to fulfill the great purposes God has for you in your life, that requires a lifetime commitment. So the example I bring up is, when do you decide, I think I'll just go back to drinking tap water, or I think I've done enough time eating good, healthy food. I think I'm just going to go back to McDonald's now. I've been working out for days. I think I'm done now. I think I've gotten that accomplished.
But
Like
wait, don't you think that that's the typical approach? Is like, all right, I've paid my dues. I've been doing this long enough. I'm just going to be done now, right?
Yeah, that's why people like medication. Is like, isn't there just a drug for this? Can I just
Yeah,
take
right.
something and then I don't have to eat healthy or drink clean water or work out anymore? So I think there is a desire by people to take a shortcut, but there really aren't any shortcuts to maintaining wellness.
Hmm.
And that investment, whether it be in chiropractic and maintaining your spine and nervous system, or all the other areas of health, that investment is so worth it. Again, I'm the son of a man that died at 52 and left his wife behind and his young kids behind.
Mm.
And I know the value of investing in your health. That moment ruined all of our lives. And that was many years ago, but it's still not the same without my dad. And to think that, for a little investment in time and money each week, he could still be here with us. That certainly, to me, from this perspective, has shown me it's worth it. So I'm committed on a regular basis to my chiropractic and the other areas of my health, because I want to be there for my family. I've got 3 kids. I've got a wife who I want to be there for as long as I could possibly be there for. I don't know how long that is, but I'm going to extend it as long as I possibly can.
Amen. I love that. And you bring up your dad, and obviously, um, the the grief never fully goes away. You wish your dad was there, but it really has propelled you to what you do today, right? It's really given you that passion to help educate and to get people on a healthy track, so they don't have to go through that destruction of a family. So, on that note, what would you say to a listener that has been struggling for a long time with their health? I was talking about how it's a ripple effect and how we take care of ourselves. But I mean, you're speaking from the ripple that has occurred of your dad not taking care of himself. So on your side of it, how does it feel being the kid, the child that, I mean, did you deal with resentment, bitterness? Like, I'm just curious about the emotions around that.
Yeah, phenomenal question. Growing up, I could see what my parents were doing in themselves. Just even as a little kid, they smoked, they were overweight, they didn't exercise. So I really got into health very young, thinking that is not a path for me. And so it did really influence my life from a very early age. So I'm still, in my mid 50s, I'm still in, incredible shape. I
Yes,
eat
you are. I see
yeah,
those veins popping right
yeah.
now.
So
Yeah.
I still go at it in the gym and eat healthy because, see my chiropractor. I married a chiropractor. That was an irreducible minimum for me, is to marry a
Fantastic.
chiropractor. So I get adjusted for free every week in our living room.
Love
Um,
it.
so that is still really important to me, because I saw growing up that was not a good thing for your kids to watch. Was
Mhm.
that you're taking lousy care of yourself. And they also talk a lot about, when you speak of genetics. So genetics, that's really a misnomer, because it's generally that you're passing your lifestyle down to your children.
Yes.
So they're experiencing many of the same conditions. It's really not about any single gene causing disease. That's already been disproven by science that there's something called epigenetics, where you can influence or improve your genetics with your lifestyle, or the opposite. You can take perfectly good genetics and destroy them with your lifestyle. So I don't want to pass on a bad lifestyle to my kids. My kids are both, all three of my kids, I got two at home and one off in the workforce already, and they are in great shape. They grew up in a healthy family and aren't experiencing any sort of problems and conditions like they could have if I had been in an unhealthy home. So it
Yeah.
did really influence me. And so I don't know that I was ever bitter, other than I recognized that was the wrong path. And then my mess became my message. My test became my testimony, that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to see if I can't turn some dads and some moms around and change some families with a better message.
That's awesome. I love that, Dr. Ben. And you could have decided to go the other route. It really is free will and choice at that moment. And you chose to take a different route, and I'm glad you did. And I know your children and your grandchildren and beyond will be glad that you did. And so those listening, what you do matters is all that we're saying. What you do matters, and more is caught than taught. And so step up into where you deserve and desire to be in your health, because your kids are watching.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just on that point too.
Yeah.
So I grew up. I love Fruity Pebbles. That was my favorite
Oh
food
my
growing up.
goodness. Yes, the
Yeah,
Flintstones.
yeah. They were awesome. And then I love pizza and ice cream. Like, that's how I grew up, and I love those foods. And I still would love them today. I haven't eaten any of those things in many years, but I still, I'm sure, would love them if I ate them. But the inspiration is my family,
Mhm.
and also knowing that God has called me to do great things. And so I know if I don't take care of this body by God, if I don't take care of the temple, then I don't have the power, I don't have the ability, I don't have the time to get things done that God's called me to get done. So it's really not something I do. I wouldn't say that I eat well and take care of myself for me. And again, it's hard for me too. But I've got great inspiration. I got a wife and three wonderful children. I've got God who loves me, and He loves me if I eat bad or not. He
That's
loves me
right.
no matter what I weigh. If I know Jesus, I get to go meet Him in heaven one day. So it doesn't change my salvation, but I know that I want to honor God with my body, and I want to I want to finish the assignment that He's given me. And the chance of that goes down if I don't follow the right kind of lifestyle.
Amen. You're preaching my word. I love it. I love it, because it is so, so true. And, I believe that when we are fueling our body best and moving our body and have this body by God and treat it as such, it's an act of worship, right? It's just another way of worshiping our creator. So I love that. And you're such a great example of that. And I'm curious about your thoughts on healing, right? And if where you believe God fits in that process, because a lot of people are like, "Hey, I'll just pray it away, and I'll just sit on the couch and eat bonbons." And I don't even know where I get that analogy, bonbons. That must have been from years ago.
Yeah, you're showing our age.
Okay, yeah, I guess so. So, and then God will just heal me, and yeah, that's possible. But what would you say about those listening? About God's a healer. I'll pray my disease away.
Yeah, I'll try to condense what I have to
Okay.
say about that. Because so the example I'll give is, you can climb up to a 10-story building and pray to God to catch you and jump off. And so He might catch you. I mean, God can do anything.
Sure.
More than likely, you're going to run into the laws of physics. And what happens when a human jumps from a 9-story building, and the laws of
Flat.
physics that God
Yeah.
set up? Yeah, you're gonna meet splat. Exactly.
Uh-huh.
That's what's going to happen. And so it's the same thing with your body. You can pray, but there are physical laws that God has set up based on the nutrients we need, and the oxygen required through movement, and the body composition that's necessary to be healthy through muscle to body fat ratios. This is all the science that God's created Himself when He made our bodies. And so God can't be mocked when it comes to our well-being. I've talked to a lot of pastors about this. I said, have you ever been praying for somebody, but it's their lifestyle, it's something they're doing to themselves? And as one pastor said to me, he goes, we actually had a woman where she had heart disease. We prayed for her and it healed miraculously. But then she went right back to the same lifestyle. So the heart disease came back.
Uh-huh.
So now when she comes up for praying, he said, I actually quietly pray for one less brownie, like, a better lifestyle, in addition to God healing her heart once again.
Right, right. Yeah, like God doesn't mind healing us, but he's a lot happier when we take care of ourselves and he doesn't have to heal us, I think.
Or
um
heal it and take care of yourself. That's
well, exactly, exactly. I love that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the other area of which you are highly educated in. I mean, I could probably talk to you for days and days, but in the area of nutrition and supplementation and all the things that you help patients with, and that's a supplementation and just being educated on how to eat is so big right now because of the confusion of what people are pushed, the different agendas going on, and all the things. So what would you say to that person that is feeling aches and pains? They're overweight, they're dealing with a disease. What would you say, like, here are your top 3 things that if you could do today, this will start to change the course and the trajectory of how you're living?
Yeah, poor diet, along with being overweight and your health. Kind of, if I was going to give one sort of tip, is we have to address the things that create inflammation because all of that sort of comes together. So when you look at processed carbs, sugars, bad fats, those 3 things alone will cause everything I just mentioned. They're going to hurt the immune system, cause you to gain weight, make you feel terrible. And when we talk about, for example, COVID, and this sort of cytokine storm that tends to kick in as we're trying to fight this virus, if you start in a state of inflammation, when you get that condition, we know that people that are overweight, as an example, or have comorbidities, they tend to be more at risk when it comes to, say, COVID and any other type of virus or pathogen or condition that's out there. So we've got to address our inflammation. And so
Right.
God did not intend us to be loading up on processed, we call them body by God, food by man. So these processed foods, these processed grains in particular, along with the sugar and the bad fats that our bodies were never intended to eat. So it leads towards, you gain weight, you get a lot of inflammation, reduce immunity, make yourself susceptible to just about anything. So that's certainly where I would start on the nutrition side. On the supplementation side, we do a lot of testing and we find that people are generally super deficient in vitamin D. And you hear a lot about that with COVID because that vitamin
Right.
D actually regulates the immune system.
Hmm.
So we've got to get extra vitamin D in there. We've got to, most people we test are really mineral deficient and they're omega-3 deficient because vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s are basically non-existent in your standard diet, yet these are
Right.
all things required for good living. So I would be on a good, at least a good multivitamin, extra D, take some extra omega-3 along with the dietary recommendations. And just what I just said in 2 minutes, those couple little changes could really make a radical difference in your future.
Yeah, that's so good, Dr. Ben. Thank you. And so many people are, like you said, living on the standard American diet, and so they're not getting any kind of real nutrient dense anything that their body needs to function appropriately. So when you're supplementing, hopefully you're eating these foods that you don't have to supplement as much, but still supplementation, there is a time for it. And so with that said, not all supplementation is created equal, and I want you to talk on that because so often, like some of my clients, they're like, well, hey, can I take this? And it's a very inexpensive, cheap, product that they get at the local drugstore or whatever. And I'm like, oh, it's not, you're really not going to benefit from that. And it could have fillers and all the things. So I want you to talk on that because this is important because we need to first of all, be able to absorb the supplement. And that's a big issue with your gut microbiome. But let's talk about the supplements themselves and how they're not created equal.
So here's a quick 60-second lesson because I've been manufacturing supplements. We have our own manufacturing company. So I've been making these products for 20 years.
Wow.
The very first time I walked into the manufacturing plant, they had on shelves, they said, here's an example of vitamin C. So the vitamin C up here is actual pure vitamin C that it's in a form that can be absorbed by the body and give you the health results you're looking for. And in its raw form, for a bottle worth, it's about $50. They said, now down here, this one's about $25. So it's a bit watered down. The form has been altered somewhat. It's not quite as absorbable by the body. That's why it's $25. So it's still pretty good, but not nearly as good as $50. They said, now down here is Walgreens, Walmart, your grocery store. This is $8. What you should take with this is take the product and flush it down the toilet because it does nothing but poison you, sit in the body. And why don't you just cut out the middleman and flush it, because your body's not doing anything with it anyways. In fact, what I've learned is you'd be better off eating the label and the bottle than the supplement. It would be less toxic and have more nutritional value. So we've tried to stick right there in the middle with a quality product that can be absorbed. It's in the right form. It's at the right dose. There's enough of it in there to do something in your body. But, you're going to be in sort of that, mid price range, $20, $30, $40. You're not going to be $8 and $12 and $13, $5. That stuff has nothing in it. Just take nothing rather than buy the cheap stuff.
Right. You get what you pay for. So that's good. I'm glad you're mentioning that, because again, so often people just want to go with the least expensive and think it's the same as the higher price point. So let's talk a little bit more about supplementation. And what you mentioned, D, we need B12. That's a pretty big one, especially with the way our soil is today. But let's talk about maybe the top 4 or 5 that you would highly recommend that people need and are typically deficient of.
Yeah, if you think of today's lifestyle and what about it robs us of nutrients, as well as the fact that you mentioned it, the soils are basically depleted of a lot of these ingredients. So they're just not even in the plants we're eating necessarily.
Right.
So D is the big one. D, you're supposed to get the bulk of it from the sun, but we don't go outside. So even Florida, when we test people in Florida where I live, they're still deficient.
Which is amazing. That's the sunshine state. I mean,
come
on.
But who goes outside? Plus it's hot. So it's hot. So we're inside where there's air conditioning. So we definitely need more D because it's a critical nutrient. It has a lot to do with gene expression, the regulation of the immune system. So it's critical that we do extra D. You mentioned B vitamins. They're critical to our cells, brain health, neurological health. So we generally need to supplement them. Stress depletes us of our B vitamins. And so I know nobody's under stress these days.
Nobody.
But
I mean, I'm not.
For those of you that are, you should take some B vitamins. That's another really critical one. We know that magnesium is something that has a lot to do with the function of our heart, how our cells work. And studies show that we're all pretty much deficient in that one. So magnesium is another just really good one in general to be supplementing. And then just, all of your, when you talk about like vitamin C, when you look at vitamin E, these base nutrients that, you can get at the very least in a multivitamin that your body needs. These are good antioxidants. These are important for immune function, cell function that our bodies become naturally depleted in even just as we age. One of the reasons they say older people are more susceptible to COVID is a lot of the sort of base nutrients your body would normally have in the cells goes down as we age. Then you don't create like the CD4 and the CD8 immune cells that are designed to destroy viruses in particular. So it's really critical to keep these base vitamins up at a high level, high dose in our body over time. And finally, again, omega-3. That's a critical nutrient for our cells, helps to control inflammation, but the diet is more omega-6 based and not omega-3 based. So we generally have to supplement that if we're going to have a healthy amount in our body.
100%. That's so good. And you can get these supplements at Vitalleo Health. Is that correct?
Yes. So we do, if you want good professional quality nutrients with the right form and dose, that's what we make at Vitalleo Health. So people can go to VitaleoHealth.com and find us.
Yes. And I will put that in the show notes as well. That's awesome. What would you say maybe the hidden pitfall that prevents most people from succeeding in their health and their well-being?
I think it's generally a thought process. I wrote a book called Winning the Inside Battle of Wellness. So, the thought process around it. So a lot of people would say, I don't like health food, or I'm not a fitness person. So we've sort of labeled ourselves as somebody who just doesn't like doing good things for our body. And it's not true. It just simply isn't true. We've seen a lot of people turn that around. So what's amazing is if you can create a different mental image for yourself and start to go against these neural ruts that I just love sugar. I couldn't possibly go without pizza, and I have to have ice cream before bed. And you begin to change those patterns over time. Those neural ruts do go away, and you form new habits. So one
Mm-hmm.
of the great things about time and behavior is that when these new habits kick in, they're just as hard to change as bad habits. So when we bake in a good habit, you can be that kind of person that does tend to take good care of themselves. So it's really hard for me to not exercise
Right.
because I've baked that neural rut in for so many years. I go crazy if I can't exercise. But I
Yes.
can go back to when it all started when I was younger and not liking to exercise. So it's a 180-degree different just based on throwing out the old label of not liking it, being consistent, laying down new ruts or new neural wiring for my brain to get
Mm-hmm.
into exercise. And now I can't go without it.
Well, right. And you really like that dopamine serotonin hit. Let's get real.
Yes, yes, it's
It's,
sweet.
yeah, it's very sweet. Makes us
It's the
happy.
best. It's the best drug, and it's legal.
Amen. Exactly. Exactly. Well, cool. Well, let's talk a little bit about your experience with the Olympics. I'd love to hear a little bit. I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, so for me, it was really exciting because I wanted to be an Olympic wrestler. So that was my goal as a high school kid, a college kid. I wrestled in college, was an All-American. Where I went to college, our coaches and other guys in the team, my partner in the wrestling room, all became Olympians. So I failed to become an Olympian. Combination of a lot of injuries and not being good enough. Either way, I wasn't going to make it. But then years later, I realized that a lot of what was a problem for me. I mean, I went to the best medical doctors, as we shared. There's the difference, and so I had medical doctors treating my problems, and it turned out that a chiropractor fixed them all.
Wow.
And so now I'm a chiropractor and realize, well, hey, all these wrestlers trying to make the Olympic team in a very traumatic sport, they may not know that there are alternatives to just having drugs and surgery to fixing their problems. And so I reached out to my old wrestling partner, and he said, man, we would love to have you. So he went and talked to the coach and said, hey, I've got this guy that's one of us that is a chiropractor, nutritionist. He can help us make weight. He can fix our problems. So the coach said, let's bring him on. So I got a chance to work with them at the World Championships in 1995, and it went so well. They brought me on officially in 1996 as the Olympic team chiropractor and nutritionist for the wrestling team. That eventually evolved into the judo team and the weightlifting team. And I got a chance to travel the world as a chiropractor for all these teams going to world championships and the Olympics. And it's a fun story because a lot of these guys wouldn't have won gold medals or wouldn't have made it had they not had the care. We saved a lot of guys from neck and back and shoulder and elbow and all the kinds of problems that would normally stop you. We overcame it through chiropractic. So we got to kind of share the gold medal with them when they won.
I love that. I love that. Nothing is wasted, and never tell God your plans because He's going to do something maybe a little bit different, and He does want the desire of your heart. It just may not look like how you thought it was going to go down. You still went to the Olympics, right?
What came from that for me was that you can't be anything you want to be, but you can be everything God intended you to be.
Yes, yes. Oh, I love that. That's so cool. And he just is full of surprises. So that's fantastic. Well, what is something maybe that, people listening or watching this right now may say, you know what, that's good for you, Dr. Ben. You've got it all figured out. You're so perfect. You don't even have a desire to have your fruity pebbles anymore. Good for you. What about me? Like I'm so on the couch and sedentary and I've just been doing this thing, you know, what's the first thing you would have them do to shift their mindset and to change and tweak so that they can get on that trajectory of creating new neurons in the brain to create new habits?
Yeah, so a lot of it is just the simple steps, but there's one thing, there's a trick that I can give you that really worked well for me to make the transition from
Yes, give us the
fruity,
trick.
yeah, fruity pebbles and pizza to the way now is I call it the 10-point replacement or the replacement rule. So 10-point reduction or replacement. So there's kind of two rules in one. So a 10-point reduction with that rule is, for example, I used to drink a lot of coffee, which really messes up your system. And so, but I loved it. So what I found is that if I could drink some similar things, so one of the things I'll do is I'll take unsweetened organic hot cocoa powder,
Mhm.
put it in a cup, pour some hot water on it, some stevia, and drink it. So it doesn't taste as good as coffee, but you get a little bit of that stimulant from the chocolate, but without the overstimulation from a lot of caffeine, and the warm flavor in your mouth that's similar to a coffee flavor. And so it's not as good as Starbucks, but it went from a 10, I was a 10 out of 10 that I wanted the Starbucks to like a 6. And then I could skip the Starbucks. That's also what we call the replacement rules. So the replacement rules, I find adequate replacement. So for example, we've learned how to make certain smoothies that taste like milkshakes. So it's all healthy ingredients, really good for you, but it tastes like a milkshake. We make brownies out of, we use black bean flour, we use almond flour, coconut flour. So we got all kinds of different flours we can use to make cookies and cakes and brownies.
How about nice cream?
Yeah.
You do nice cream
I
with
know
frozen bananas too. And yeah, it's good.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of, so those replace. So I now, people think I'm suffering, but I eat desserts all the time. They just have healthy ingredients and no sugar. So there's a way to deal with the cravings and the foods you love by reducing the intensity of the craving and replacing them with something similar. Nothing beats straight up pizza, but we make chia seed pizza. We make pizza out of cauliflower crust.
Okay, wait a minute. I've never had chia seed pizza. I want to check that one out.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah,
get those omegas in that way too.
Yes, there's a lot of great recipes. So we do a lot of cooking, a lot of great recipes. We have restaurants that do these things. We found a local pizza place that uses cauliflower crust, and so it's not impossible.
Exactly. No, I love that. Just have that healthy replacement, and would you call it the 10-point rule?
10-point reduction rule.
Reduction rule.
Those things that are just a 10, if we can get them down to a 6 or a 7,
then you'll probably keep getting it down further at that point. So that's awesome. I love it. Okay. Well, what are you kind of focused on right now? Because you've had your hand in many different pools of major success areas when it comes to health and wellness. What are you focused on right now? What are you doing?
Well, so with Vitalleo, we do a lot of testing. We do a lot of wellness
blood work
testing. And then based on the test results, we can really blueprint a protocol for you to either get over problems if you're having them, or just like for a lot of us, we'll do the testing and find out that there's certain foods we're sensitive to, or certain nutrients we're deficient in. So we can upgrade our program based on real results that are going on in our blood or our urine or our saliva or something like that. So that's our real focus when it comes to wellness. I also am the CFO of a tech company that makes tech products, and so that's a way for us to reach lots of people. So that's why I got into that, is we are reaching millions and millions of people that way, and creating certain wellness tech products along with that. So the world hasn't been saved yet, so I'm still hard at it.
Oh, that's amazing. I mean, you just have 24 hours in a day, and so do I. And I hear you and I'm like, wow, you go, brother. That's awesome. Okay. 2 last questions. One, and they're pretty simple. One, what is something that, maybe no one has heard of you that's not listening to my podcast, but maybe someone listening has heard of you because you've been around for a while and your books are bestsellers. But what's one thing that someone maybe they wouldn't know about you? Like, it's personal, it's kind of fun. What's kind of a out of the box thing that Dr. Ben either does or what is it?
Well, a lot of my fitness comes from my 3 children. So a lot of what I've had as a hobby now, because they're a pretty wide range. I got 14, 18, and 26. So a lot of my fitness is getting into whatever they're into. So I was really into wrestling and MMA with my oldest son. So I did that for many years. Then my daughter got into gymnastics and diving and swimming, and she's actually really into working out. So then I that was my hobby with her, and still is. She's going to college. She's going to be a Division I diver next year.
Wow.
But
amazing.
she and I still play tennis together and work out together. Then my youngest son, who's going to be the last one at home here, he's really into working out track and basketball. So one way I've stayed fit, and one way that I've stayed young, because I'm not young anymore.
Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you
are. Was just hanging with the kids and training with them has helped my relationship with them, helped to keep them going, keep them focused on top of it. But I still feel like I'm 18 years old as a result.
That is so cool. Yeah. My husband and I, we love to watch American Ninja Warrior, right? And we see some of these stories of these father sons, and they're doing the course together. And so I love that you're working out with your kids and building that bond. And yeah, it's a way for you to stay in shape too, and you're having fun doing it. So that's super cool. Love it. All right. Well, before you go, what's one maybe word or phrase that would kind of sum up the totality of who you are and what you're all about?
I would say it's resurrection.
Mm.
Just because times are often tough, but we can always be resurrected in Christ. So I know that there's nothing about yesterday that in Christ matters as much as today and tomorrow. And so if there's anything true about him, is that there's always hope, there's always a future. And so regardless of anything that's happened in the past, we could be resurrected again right now and have a much more powerful future.
Preach it, Dr. Ben. Yes, I love it. Great way to end this podcast. So thank you so much for sharing your time with us, your just your passion and your just wealth of knowledge. So we appreciate your time. And thank you all for tuning in to this episode of Visibly Fit. And we'll catch you next time. Make sure you, give a review and share it with your buddies because, man, there's a lot to learn on this one. Take care. We'll catch you next time. Well, that's a wrap for today's show, so thank you so much for tuning in. I love spending this time with you. To learn more and get more free resources, just head on over to wendiepett.com, and thank you in advance for sharing this episode and this podcast, following and subscribing not only to this podcast, but finding me on social media, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you are, I'm probably there too. Until next week and our next podcast time together, make it a Visibly Fit day.